Alright, let's do a little walkthrough on the speedrun that is Naxx Ramos, going through all of the different positions. Obviously the very first thing that you will do in any like speedrun is getting into position. So in this video, obviously, like we log in, we get into position, right? This was on the classic era, so we have like limited buffs, right? You have battle shout. For Naxx Ramos in the anniversary, right? You will only be probably having, you know, either Shin of Sansa, depending on if there's any usability of that, and or the AV armor buff at least. The first positioning right here is by getting to the Spiderwing, right? So we're waiting for everyone to be sorted in a good position so that we can pull away the mobs with the paladin, the initial paladin pull, so that we can, you know, safely move into position. This is the POV from the paladin, who will more or less just use their own abilities. So as soon as the spiders are like in a better position, they will move in with in this one it's you know, swift boots, but you can use a Scalloping Pending Doom. But more or less run speed, starting off with the lip, pulling away the first initial few mobs. Make sure that you grab them. Consecration on the ground so that they don't reset. And then in this position you would use a petrification potion in order to like stack them up and make sure that the last pack doesn't reset. And in the meanwhile, right, this obviously is from the FSP run, and you will see True Light in this position do the pull here, pulling away the mobs. But then while you're waiting for the paladin to set up, make sure that you're tucked into the corner. If you stand like out here, then there is a possibility, if you have a bad patrolling skitter pack, sometimes one of the spiders will like get stuck like around here and then like try to catch up and then goes too close to the door and then it can like actively see you. So you want to be entirely tucked into this corner. But other than that, you can see True Light, right, is pulling away the mobs using consecration and then petring, right, in order to stack them up. As for the start of this run, we can probably go forward a little bit. Obviously, right, Anub'Rekhan is a undead boss in this, you know, Spiderwing or like beast wing with the humanoids. But since it is undead Bob, you can instead use your I'm using the wrong triggers here. I should be using Mark of the Champion, but yeah, using undead trinkets in order to like do the most amount of damage. By the time that this fight dies, obviously you want to try to swap back to your regular damage trinkets that are not undead based. Another thing here on the walk-in, like if everyone walks in and instantly attacks an Anub'Rekhan, you could have a situation where it instantly kills off the main tank. You can see me greeting in this one, like I attack a little bit early. I do get one parry here, but if you get a parry haste instantly on the main tank, they could just die, so you don't want to intentionally attack moving into this boss, right? Obviously we do Death Wish ASAP, and the next Death Wish is more or less gonna be on Maexxna. So this is your only Death Wish that you have for the first part of the 5 minutes of the run here, more or less. Obviously you're just trying to cleave this down as much as possible. In this run specifically, we are doing a different setup for our pull with the FSP, doing the Noth variant of pulling the mobs into the corner. If you look at the minimap, like in the cubby here that is right by the corner, so you can see the awkward movement around the spider eggs. It's very easy, like if you're doing this pull variant, it's very easy to accidentally pull if you just like walk out a little bit of a a bad pathing. Obviously, right here there is a bop going out on the assigned targets. The first AoE taunt obviously going out, which is gonna be followed up by 2 additional bops on the 2 more targets that are usually assigned. In this one you can see a bunch of oil immolations, obviously, as we move in. If you wanted to make this like a bit safer, if you have Ramsteins, you could probably use that instead of running an undead trinket with your active trinket, and then more or less try to just maximize the damage output on the AoE pool. The alternative pool that we most likely will be doing instead in return is another variant of it. But yeah, so you more or less, from the Paladin PoV, they set it up by Invis spotting in. Gotta make sure that the skitter pack is not in a bad timing. But I just Holy Shock, when you get pulled in, you bubble into Scalloping Pending Doom, cast little Iron Grenade, and then this will be the kill position instead. So from the raid perspective, they will be running in, not hugging into the corner that you saw in the FSP run. Let's see, the one over here. But instead, like when you get around the corner, right, that's when you will sort it out. This is just a bad pull, just showing off how the Paladin would do it. But of course, like as you're moving around, you could, pre-Oil of Immolation, try not to buff early if you're, for whatever reason, like a caster that has to buff people. Like, don't do that now, obviously, like then they will like come in prematurely, then it's just bad. Do bop the first tank that is moving into the pack, and then, the first AoE taunt happens, and then the second bop happens, and, you AoE the group down, obviously. Depending on the pathing on the skitters in this room here, they can be in a somewhat, precarious like location. They could be coming from the left, they could be in the middle. Assuming that the hunter pulls the skitters, then they would probably arrive towards the door as you're engaging. But they could also be coming from the left, and you gotta just be kind of reactive to it. If they're coming from the left, you kind of don't want to cross more than this line towards the left-hand group, because then you might potentially ninja pull the left-hand side. Very easy to accidentally do, especially if the skitters are pathing from the side. If you pull them early, they might chain into the pack, and then you're having, a big time loss. Since you can't avoid killing the right-hand pack no matter what you do, you want to try to avoid it as much as possible. Obviously in this run, you can see that we managed to get it in the middle, and we opt to not pull it early, essentially having it at the same time here. In this run, I was the first Fury Warrior to be assigned for the pull, so you can see I try to AoE taunt as soon as the first skitter group is located. Just by hapstance, we have some overlapping mobs, so I try to move it further forward. Because of these mobs, right, they have a full frontal cleave, so you kind of want them to be moved away from the overall melee group. Unfortunately, we end up going for like more of a mass target dummy pull here, so they're just like running all over during this. But you can see random people taking additional cleave damage. Some people might be having skitters attack them as well. But yeah, obviously, as soon as Anub'Rekhan would have died, you would have swapped off of any undead trinkets, because these are all beasts, and the remainder mobs and the caster mobs by Faerlina are humanoids. So you benefit nothing from having undead equipped. If we are running with the multiple sets of rank 14 weapons, you would be swapping off to your rank 14 weapons that have crit on them instead of the undead cleansing chopping stone. Pack per pack, there's gonna be assigned most likely a number. The AoE taunt 1 through 10, and depending on that, you need to make sure that you haven't, used MRP on Anub'Rekhan or haven't like accidentally used a potion early if you're assigned to it. I wouldn't risk, even if you are, let's say, AoE taunt 9 or 10, in an ideal run you wouldn't have to use them, but I still wouldn't risk it and just leave out your potion cooldown until you have been in the assigned position, or we are like way past the packs after Faerlina as well, because there's one remaining skitter pack after Faerlina has died. But obviously, Pugs does the second AoE taunt here. These spiders that we also saw, they shoot out a poison that rapidly kills you. If you don't have EPR like bound to everything, you are most likely, at the very minimum, if you are like paying attention to your debuff, you're taking like half your health minimum. So just stop. Always cleanse, like just perma cleanse. You can see I've already used one at this point in time. In this position, you're of course gonna have like the lip, right? So you're in a kind of a line of sight situation. So especially if you're melee here, you could potentially be taking some hits from the infectious skitters, especially if you're running in with all of immolation applied to yourself, or using any like trinkets to do AoE damage. Just make sure that you aren't before, or should I say, like engaging or doing damage to the packs before the actual AoE taunt has gone out. On top of that, you will most likely have in the next pack here both the left and the right hand skitter pack incoming. So this should be applied to two different AoE taunters. Obviously the first one just grabs the initial skitter pack, and the second one just waits for the other one to arrive from the right hand side. These Necrostalkers are pathing up and down this entire hill, and they could be in a position where you might have to skip them and instead do Faerlina. But yeah, by the time that this is happening, you can see that we have, let's see, it's Karakan, right, set up for doing the pull onto the Faerlina mobs. This skitter pack patrol, if it doesn't get pulled by the paladin, you gotta be careful when you go for the Faerlina pull. You kind of want to kill it before it becomes a real issue. But usually, this is not an issue. The paladin just grabs them. Obviously here, this paladin is using Bubble with Sculpting Penny Doom to pull them. Drops a Consecration just so that they don't reset. Wasn't a Consecration here, probably just a minor mistake. But in this case, they do re-aggro. A Consecration will just make sure that it's way more safe for the actual pull. For this pack, you will not have your Death Wish up. It might if we are like at the start of the phase, but usually you wouldn't have your Death Wish up. And as I mentioned earlier, like the only Death Wish that you will essentially have is at the very start by Anub'Rekhan, and the second one will be by Maexxna. But because of this, we essentially don't use Recklessness by Anub'Rekhan. We use it on Faerlina to make it a safe pull. On top of that, you can see that I have equipped a speed item. So by the time that Faerlina is dead, we will use speed items to go way more quickly to the Tomb Horror packs that are coming up. Obviously, the followers here, they can charge away and be a nuisance to the priests. Since the priests are, trying to mind control the worshippers, if the followers charge in, they could silence the priest, and it becomes like a little bit of an issue. Ideally, you just charge in directly to the most leftmost follower. Just try to instant nuke it and then swap off to Faerlina and try to just cleave down the remaining mobs. Ideally, the tank that is assigned to the rightmost follower will try to pull it into the melee cleave, and then as soon as you see it like approach Faerlina, just swap off, clear it off, and then like focus back onto Faerlina. The rest of the worshippers will just die from a passive cleave. But you saw that the follower there like charging onto one of the priests. All in the meanwhile, right, we will get random rains of fires applied to the entire raid. It could be either on the caster group or onto the melee. Assuming that it's the caster group, like from a melee perspective, you don't need to like really worry about it. Like casters will try to like readjust. If you have it on top of yourself, then obviously you kind of want to be ready to either, like if you're not assigned to using your potion cooldowns, you could potentially have a saved up like a GFPP if needed, or if you're, you know, bowling out with money, you could use a frozen rune. But I try to be very wary of your health on this fight, because it's very easy that you don't pay attention because you're trying to focus down the followers, and then, you know, you end up dying to the rain of fire. Obviously, in our runs, we will have pre-applied at least a GFPP, because, you know, there's no buff limit. So you have a little bit of leeway. But you can see that the Rain of Fire happened on the melee group, and since we're already kind of blasting down Faerlina, we started, you know, dragging it towards the spider net. If you were to accidentally pull Faerlina on top of the net, she can actually like go through it, and then you can't use any abilities and only melee attack. So if you are tanking and pulling the mob, try to not drag it like too far up the net. Obviously, like by the edge, you're perfectly fine. Like it's not gonna like just run behind you and go through it, but it can be a bit sketchy. But during this entire time, right, Karapali or Karakan has been in petrification this entire time, so assuming that you have a quick kill on Faerlina, it's not an issue. But if you have like slight mishaps and like not an ideal pull, maybe the skitter pack was like not in a good position, and maybe you had to kill the skitter pack, you kind of want to be very quick on using your speed item. In this case, we're using the trinket, right? You could be using boots, just nothing that can, you know, backfire, so no like goblin or gnomish rocket boots. But yeah, swift boots probably would be a contender, but this is what we used in the 4250. But yeah, speed items. So what we are pre-equipping when we do this is, because we're running the rogue outer wing pool, means that we will be using our goblin rocket boots by the time we get to the outer wing. So that is why we are pre-equipping it here. On top of that, also having Invis trinket in case it's needed, depending on the patrols, or depending on if the rogue didn't get like the correct mobs pulled, etc. Obviously, these Tomb Horror packs, they do, you know, curses. Obviously, if it's cast onto a melee, then you might be in a bad position because, you know, you have reduced healing. If there's some mishap with this skitter tank, then of course, just dump it. Make it safe for everyone. But as soon as we get into the outer wing here, we are gonna be fighting a lot of undead mobs, depending on if there's the ghouls left. But, like, assuming that the rogue did the pull correctly, the next mob that you will kill are humanoids. But in case there's some mishap, then you will be fighting ghouls, which are undead. But you can see here, like the rogue did the pull correctly, which means that we are running our goblin rocket boots. We ended up not needing our Invis trinket here, because he managed to grab both of the gargoyle packs that are located here. The ghouls, assuming that we like miss them or have to kill them in the lower part of the room here, they are patrolling around this circle back and forward. They do have an enrage mechanic, so if they are reaching low health but doesn't die instantly, like they are gonna be clapping really hard. So you could potentially, you know, just fall over really, really quickly. These undead mobs are these humanoid casters that are standing on each side of the doorway. On the initial pull, they will start casting shadow bolts and shadow bolt volleys, and then they will like take a little bit and then move towards you. There's also going to be spider patrols pathing back and forward, and those are of course beasts instead of undead. But as you can see, because our rogue did the initial pull, then we have no mobs here to worry about. There's another humanoid packs back here and here, which cast Shadowbolt Volley. If we're in a speedrun setting, then the pack on the right here that you saw was pulled by the rogue. They will still cast their poison volley, so you might still get hit while you're moving through this section. It's not a real issue. Don't panic when you see it happen, like don't move towards them. But it happens all the time. You could see some people get hit by it. By the very end there you see Kexek taking damage, for instance. But you can see the Shadowbolt volley being cast by the Acolytes. Just blast them down. Don't worry about like any like real issue here. Because we are skipping some Acolytes from downstairs, the choice for the Hunter, right, is to pull these packs. That is because of the kill requirement requires us to have, you know, additional Acolytes. Some miscommunication with some of the raid members, they're running up before killing them. On Maexxna, depending on our strategy, but I'm assuming we're running the current speedrunning strategy for future use, you wouldn't use a potion cooldown here on Maexxna. I think for, you know, the first week clears or whatever, like when kills might get a bit close, you might be using MRPs to just make sure you kill off Maexxna. But in general, if you are running like a speedrun comp here, you would try to just open up with the Death Wish, like second global, you know, you Sunder first and then Death Wish. Around like halfway in, you would use your trinkets. In this case, you know, Earth Strike, right? I have Kiss in this. Obviously, not everyone will have that. But yeah, we are saving our potion cooldown because what we are about to enter into the rest of the room is gonna be Abomination pack that is gonna be pulled into the Plaguewing. Another small thing here that is different to this era run, with the introduction of Snowball Tech, we might have a weak aura that is like ticking down before the web cocoons get sprayed out on the 3 random targets. And if you yourself get targeted and you see your screen start to like get you flung away, you can reactively use Snowball in order to have your cocoon be closer to the actual boss fight. Let's see, that was it, right? There you see, you saw 3 targets get flung away. If you just instantly snowball, you will still get put into the cocoon. Or they got flung away. But if you snowball, you will like hinder your movement, and then you will still become the cocoon, but you're way closer towards the exit, and people don't have to like move as far to get you out. And you can more or less, maybe depending on how close you are to the actual fight, right? You might be able to get like cleaved down by the remaining melee. Obviously, you might have the spider, you know, still get pulled here. It's part of the kill mechanic here. If we have a really slow Maexxna kill, during the enrage that happens here, we might still get hit by the entire raid cocoon mechanic. That one you can't snowball out of. That one is just applied, and then you have to make sure that the tank is healthy. They will use a shield wall. They will, you know, get hotted up. If you have a ticking ignite, good luck, mages. But yeah, so as soon as you exit out, you're gonna go to the leftmost, like, entrance. Obviously, there is, you know, a cross, so there's 4 exits. But based on your location exiting from Maexxna, going to the Plaguewing, which is in the bottom right corner, you go left, which is, you know, a bit disorienting if it's your first time here. I did that entire fight with Skull on. Don't question it. But yeah, oil as you're moving in. We are charging in this position. There might be a call not to do this. Also, obviously, these ghouls here are very dangerous. As they're entering, you know, low percentage health, they're going to enrage, and then they can just instantly kill you. But yeah, we have full undead mobs again, so you make sure that you swap back to your undead trinkets. You can see I'm running Mark of the Champion here. Obviously, you will use your quest trinket that gives you 81 AP. These slimes on the ground, they hit very hard just base damage. So if you're like early into the fight and start just instantly blasting on your cleave and whirlwinds, you gotta be careful. You could just instantly die. And if you don't have like a tank there early, like right here is a good example. Like if you're like tanking these slimes and then you can't get there early and you just charge in and cleave, then there is a likeliness that you might be having a bad time. In this one, we end up using a dummies because of like a bad timing. I think one of the tanks was not there, so just a panic dummy to save them. But during like the far end of the first pack, the hunter will be pulling the A-bombs that are arriving to you. These will do an AoE stun that is preventable with the free action potion. So as soon as we finish off this slime, then we will be using FAP to clear this off. Not only do they stun, they also have a cleave mechanic. So if you have one arriving really early, you kind of want to make sure that it's dead before, like, you know, you get 4 different cleaves applied to the entire raid. Obviously, it's a random, you know, target after the first initial, you know, target that it's is attacking. So, like, even if it's going off target trigger in this case, it will chain onto, I think, 2 additional targets after that. So if you have like a really unlucky chain, you can have multiple golems doing the cleave onto you. And you can't avoid it by being behind. It's a 360 chain. But yeah, we end up only getting 1 cleave, but it could be a bit scary here. If you noticed a little bit earlier, you saw that the gargoyle was patting back and forward. The first initial gargoyle does not have the mechanic of spitting out the poison bolts onto you. However, it still has the stone form that they engage into when they get low. However, there's another patrolling gargoyle that is going down all the way to Noth and going back up, back and forth, reset or like turning around in this general area. Depending on where it's located in its path, there might be a call to wait initially, so it, you know, gets up to us, we clear it out, and then we move forward. But I think in this run we end up cleaving down all 3 because we are severely overgeared. But yeah, these poison hits, they obviously do quite a bit of damage over time. and you want to avoid as much of that as possible. So like getting down 2 of them initially, so they go into the stone form instead of like being able to cast another poison, is obviously gonna be the best case here. We end up grabbing 4 of the stacks here. I think the ideal one would be at the end of the stairs to have 7 total. You will always get at least 2 casts per pack that you pull. In this one, right, we got 1 additional because we had 3 targets simultaneously. Usually you manage to clear out the gargoyle's health so that they don't get to cast a second one. If you have 8, you are kind of in a really dangerous position. What you could do in a quote-unquote ideal speedrun or whatever is, as soon as the event for combat has ended, you could potentially, you know, petri this off. I would not risk that ever, because, you know, we have the obvious petrification limits. What you should be doing instead is just sit down, refresh your food buff, and you could, like from the initial, go into defensive stance to reduce the amount of damage taken from the debuff, because the priests are still having to deal with their own, you know, health pool being like a lot lower than yours, so they're just spamming prayers at this point in time, so you might as well just grab your food buff instantly. Obviously, you want to swap back from defensive stance to berserker stance before, you know, you're like lose all of the potential rage from it. In this run, right, we have the confidence to instantly just move in, even with the, you know, the debuffs happening in our raid. But this is a bit sketchy. Not necessarily because you're supposed to take any damage on any of the DPS melees, but because the initial on Noth could be like a bad opener on the main tank, and like taking 1 or 2 hits, depending on the parry haste on a DPS, is more or less just a kind of guaranteed death. But you can see there's no more incoming damage onto any of the melee for the rest of this. So assuming that the tanks are healthy, that's all you need to realistically care about in this point in time. Just make sure you don't over-aggro initially. Depending on how fast the speedrun is, your Death Wish is gonna come up probably right as Noth ends, or even inside of the gauntlet that is coming up. The tanks, as soon as the ads spawn onto Noth, will obviously just be dragging them directly into the melee stack, and you just cleave them down with the boss. If you have a slow Noth kill, you will get a teleport at any given time. This teleport completely threat wipes Noth, and you're gonna be in a bad time if you have a ticking ignite, or if you get like a BT cast off right as it teleports. So if the teleport happens, just be a bit wary, like take a bit step back, try not to intentionally like out threat the tank. Obviously if it's like 2% health left, it's gonna be a bit tempting, but just don't die. A death here is like 20-30 seconds time loss from just the kill timers, so do not waste your health. Probably a bit less than that, but let's say 10 to 15 seconds for a less than 0.5 second time save on killing a little bit faster. These mobs right here, they are all beasts, obviously. None of them are undead, so technically you could potentially have swapped off of your Mark of the Champion for like a regular trinket, right? Like Hodge or BHB or DFT if you have that. But if you have like a hectic pool here, you might not be able to swap back, so do what you will with that information. Heigan has 2 real mechanics from a DPS perspective. He has the teleport, which will obviously, you know, bring you directly to the end of the hallway, right? You will never have any reason to run back because the boss is gonna die before it becomes a real issue for you. But more or less, you are just trying to avoid the poison that is gonna get spewed out of the room. It has 3 different patterns, left, middle, right. So what you're seeing here is us moving into position. And for the middle of it, there are 2 middles, right? So it's a 4, right? So left, mid-left, mid-right, and then the furthest right. Heigan should die before we ever get to a dance, but I won't be able to show off dance in this round because we don't get it. Another thing on Heigan, right, because of the teleport mechanic, depending on what we do with speed items, 5 to like 5-6 seconds into the fight, if you use a limited invulnerability potion, you can avoid the teleport mechanic, and then you just don't get teleported. It's a physical ability, so like using it means that you just avoid the entire teleport. What we most likely will be using is swiftness potion directly after this to get into position. This does mean that everyone has to use swiftness pot. Because you are gated by an actual gate for the start of Loatheb. Yeah, Heigan's room is notoriously bad for tank, like dragging. What you saw there was Heigan trying to path towards Traeger. That happens sometimes. He just runs like in a weird fucking path. But you can kind of see like the different paths of it when it comes to the poison on the ground. In general, we probably will have someone like marked that is standing on melee, and just try to be as stacked up as possible so you don't stand in the wrong position. You can also see me like start to pre-equip not only chicken and Arcanite Dragonlings. Obviously on Anniversary you can't use chicken. You could, I think you still can use Arcanite Dragonling to help out the caster camp. Not too sure how helpful it is for speedruns in Anniversary, but it is still a game. It is expensive to make, I will say that. Since you have more than 30 seconds going from Heigan all the way to Loatheb anyway, like it's just a free trinket swap. But you can see the Swinter spot going out. It ends up being a few people that didn't have the potion here in this run. But you can see me swapping, if you're a warrior obviously, I'm swapping to the Undead Cleansing set. Even if you are full biz, running Undead Cleansing on Loatheb specifically, since you have 100% crit, it is a higher statistical damage output than running even like Goa's having everything else. I'm running with rank 10 set here. You can have this discussion with other people. I'm not gonna talk about the usefulness of different set pieces there. But yeah, by the time you're on this bridge, you know, on Era you would obviously use chicken directly here, but if you're running either of the trinkets, make sure that you have the Arcanite Dragonling equipped. So on Loatheb, you're obviously assigned a spore. I think for our clears initially, right, we will probably take more than the first initial 5. But in a speedrun setting, you will only take 5, maybe even 4 spores at all, and instead have them on like DPSers going into the military wing instead to make it go way smoother, way faster. But you can see that the first spore group ends up going, I think, instead of Oblivions, rest in peace Oblivions, of course. Oblivions is a bit late to the spore, they end up killing it before. Kind of on his own fault for not moving in time there. During this fight, right, we still have potion cooldown. The next potion that you're gonna be using, outside of the one target that is using a Lip AoE taunt on the coming pack, you are opting to run Greater Shadow Protection pots. The Greater Shadow Protection pot will be used because we are moving into a big AoE pack in a little bit. But you can see in this run, right, we ended up having only 2 spores at the end, so Spore Group 1 and Spore Group 2, you know, goes for it and then moves into the next pack. Because we've had a few healers out at this point, means that we will engage instantly, more or less, with the next pack here. But yeah, these Necro Knights with the Shade, they do AoE damage, so the Shadow Protector pot that we just used will reduce some of that incoming damage. And the tank that is supposed to use AoE taunt is obviously doing it instantly. The rest of the group is trying to place target dummies towards the end of this room, right, in order to have them move properly. You would be using, you know, Sappers and or Holy Waters. I fucked up in this run myself, but yeah, that is what you would be doing. These packs with the Death Knights and Captains. The Death Knight will, after a long while, use an AoE Fear, which means that you should be rolling Fear Wards on everyone, like, continuously throughout Plaguewing, more or less. But this Captain, right, if you don't kill it fast enough, it starts with an initial animation of a Whirlwind, and then after X amount of seconds, the actual damage comes out. You want to be clearing out the Captains pretty much ASAP. They are the actual, like, dangerous mobs in either of these packs. As a warrior, right, getting feared sucks, obviously, but you can negate some of that if you were to get it with Berserker Rage. On any of the packs, if we have a Skeletal Smith pulled, you always focus the Skeletal Smiths, since they apply Thunderclap onto all of the melee. It can be dispelled, but sometimes you don't have the GCDs to do that. We managed to clear it out before it becomes like a real issue in this one, but you can see the very last one ends up getting a Thunderclap cast onto us. And yes, it does quite a bit of damage. It also, you know, applies a slow, not only to the swings, but also to movement speed. And there you can see, you know, a perfect example. We have a Captain already spinning, but it hasn't applied the actual damage yet. You can lip the cast if it becomes like an issue. This patrol might potentially be pulled like separately before this pack. It depends on where they are in their patrol, of course. Never charge on these mobs, ever. If you charge on these mobs, it chains the pack that is to the left here. And if you have the patrol simultaneously, you could potentially have not only like 2, not only 3, but depending on where in the patrol they are, you could have all 4 packs at the same time, and then you're most likely gonna have deaths. Because if the patrol is in a location pathing around here, they could chain the pack on the left side. But if we end up pulling this anyway, like halfway through it, and end up clearing it with ease because we are severely overgeared here. What you see me here is equipping Ramsteins. What we are about to do is the military wing stables pool. This pool obviously requires you to have a lot of AoE damage in order to clear it off quickly. I think with our current comp, we might not have 4 mages, so the more like trinkets and or like goblin bomb dispensers in combination with like sappers, the more we have of that means that we can more easily like kill it off. But yeah, so what you want to be doing is you want to place yourself as close as possible without peeking early. If you don't have a potion cooldown, if you have fucked up for some reason, mana pot, if you used rage pot, if you used whatever, during that entire upper part, then you're not going to be able to use your lip and move in. You will just instantly die. But yeah, the paladin will more or less pull this mob towards you. Because of how the cavalries work, you will get an early combat because they are trying to apply a mark to everyone in the raid. Don't get like I don't know, scared or try to like hesitate or like go in early just because you see a combat timer. Try to time it with when they actually arrive, and before you run around the corner, lip. Make sure that you lip before you run around the corner, and then you run around, and then you obviously use your sappers and or holy water, and of course your Ramsteins if you're running that. But if you don't have a pot cooldown, what you would do is you would run over towards this meat wagon and then like AFK there. The main reason why you would instantly die is because the stable pool there, they have trample, which AoE damages everyone around them. So you fall over. In this version of the run, we run in with a shield wall on tank 4, which AoE taunts the mobs initially, so that the priests can easily and quickly use their mind controls onto the correct targets. And you can see as soon as the understudies are mind controlled, they are being you know, pulled into the corner there. You can see that one of the priests are intentionally using or standing behind Razuvious to do some damage. What we are doing here is we're overlapping AoE taunts onto the targets. Right now there's only one taunt here, you can see on my DBM. There's the second one, so we have 2 overlapping taunts. We can't like accidentally fuck over the priest AoE taunt here by using dummies in this version of the game. But on arrow, right, if you use enough debuffs, you push off the taunt, and then you're kind of in a fucked place. But yeah, we are overlapping the taunts. You more or less want to Death Wish around 80-85%, kind of early. This fight should be around 35 to 40 seconds in an ideal kill. You can see that one of the understudies had a heartbeat drop, which means that, yes, we did have a potential failure rate there. But we still have the remaining taunt here. By the time that we get close to killing Razuvious, you will, as a melee, try to instantly drop any target dummies. If you are a caster during this fight as well, there will be a shout that Razuvious does. This shout does damage based on your mana pool. So if you have full mana, you can just instantly die if you're not, you know, standing in line of sight during the shouting. But yeah, as soon as Razuvious is dead, assuming that you aren't mind controlled at the very point in time, the understudies get applied a debuff that increases the damage they take by like, I don't know, like 1000% or something. They just instantly fall over. As we're moving into the next coming packs, we have the undead weapons, right? The staves, the axes, and the swords. The axes, they have both Sweeping Strikes ability, and they also have a Whirlwind ability. Sweeping Strikes will just target a random player. You know, it is just cleaving onto the next closest players. And the Whirlwind will actively spin onto everyone. You want to be splitting them up because it's very dangerous to have both of the axes directly on top of each other. If we end up, you know, getting them at the same time, you could potentially just die to a double Whirlwind cast or a double Sweeping Strikes hit. So just be careful. Like, it hurts a lot. Obviously, we have a little bit more health on Anniversary compared to them. Staves, they will use Frost Nova, and you can't really avoid it. You just gotta sit in it. You won't have your potion cooldown, so you can't like actively opt out of it. These few weapons are randomized. One of the patrol can be, you know, any combination of staff axe, staff sword, sword, or axe sword. Not two staves. I can't remember if it's 2 axes. It could be 2 axes. But you will most likely have 4 weapons at this point in time. The tank will obviously, if it's an axe, try to move it into position, like away from the rest of the group. And as for the swords, just make sure that you clear them off relatively quickly. But you can see that the whirlwind damage there. I got hit once, and I dodged 1. The first initial hit was 2.5k damage. So yeah, like just imagine 2 of those casting 2 spins, and then you're taking 10,000 damage. Non-crit, by the way. As for these packs, just charge into the Shade, swap off to the Necronites. They are dangerous. They of course cast Arcane Explosion. They also cast the Blast Wave. The Arcane Explosion has a cast time, but Blast Wave is instant. They also have a third ability where they teleport to a random member in the raid. I didn't get it there, but they could just teleport directly into the backlines of the casting group. So make sure that you clear them out. The upcoming pack here that we are about to engage with, it's very easy to die. If you charge in and you take 2 hits, like even if it's just melee hits by the 2 Necronites and maybe, you know, 2 blast waves instantly, even if you're not dead by those 2 hits, if you're below 15% health, the Death Knight captains have a ability to execute you. It's not like raw damage, they just kill you, like straight up kill you. And that can happen really easy. If you have a target dummy for whatever reason, I would suggest like doing like 1 dummy towards the door to just make it safer, so that you don't have someone accidentally die. You can see me here running a Frost Protection Pot. On Anniversary we will just have this pre-pot by default, so you don't need to worry about that. Obviously here we are splitting up into very specific group archetypes here. We have 6 melee targets onto the left hand side in a normal group setup. In this one we have just 1 warrior per pile on the left hand side. You know, left, middle, right. The rest of the group will be on the undead side to deal with the packs that are being pulled in by the hunter in this run here. But as soon as the hunter, you know, gets the initial jump, and they will just more or less start pulling the mobs here. Spirits, still, they have the AoE bolt. We haven't seen it in this run because we have skipped them previously. But they will do an AoE target here. These ghouls, obviously, they still have the Berserk if you get them very low. If you have aggro on them at the like very end, they can hit you for like up to 4,000 or 5,000 damage per hit. If you're, you know, regular DPS geared and not like heavily tanking. These like this actual boss encounter on the undead side will spawn these trainees based on, you know, what mobs are being killed over on the other side. In this one we had patrol actually. This one you shouldn't have the need to kill, but because of bad patrols in our run, we had to pull it and kill early. You can also see that we are equipping Goblin rocket boots here to get out of Gothik faster later on. But yeah, the patrols have a Vindicator that applies marks on you, and it has 2 Necro Knights that obviously can teleport, and Arcane Explosion Blast Wave. The next important pull that you will see is gonna be the Gargoyles. They have different names, but they have the same abilities as we had in the Plaguewing earlier. Oh yeah, it's my Whipper keybind. But yeah, they have the same ability where they cast a Poison Bolt Volley onto everyone. What you saw here was the Acolytes that we saw in the meanwhile, the ones that cast Shadow Bolt Volley, they just more or less instantly die. And you will have an assigned group of warriors that are always gonna be on the quote-unquote event side, or killing off any of the mobs spawning from the living side group, clearing out the mobs during the waves. But yeah, you can see that the entire group is reorienting towards the middle part of the run here, or middle part of the room. This is to avoid additional Poison Bolt Volleys being cast on the entire raid. In this one, the Poison Bolt Volley was cast by the time that they arrived, which means that you can't really avoid it. But yeah, obviously you can't really like deal with this like poison in any way. You can't patch it, you can do anything, so you just have an additional 5 to like 800 dots that is gonna be the rest of the 23 to, what is it, like 25 seconds that it gets applied to. The undead Death Knights, they can cast Sunder Armor onto whoever is dealing with them. This Sunder Armor stacks, and if you have just one of your tanks have like 3-4 stacks of it, then you are gonna be having a really bad time, because you can more or less get instantly killed by the horse packs that are gonna spawn later on. You can see the spectral horses on the DBM, right? But more or less it's trainees, they die quickly. And yes, here is the second Gargoyle pack, since you have to clear both 4 individual mobs or packs of 2 for the kill requirement. And since we skip them in the outer wing, the rogue outer wing skip, we need to kill 4 of them. And since we are in, you know, Gothik, it is the obvious time to do it. Just the same here, we are trying to avoid as much Poison Bolt Walls as possible. Obviously, we get cast a few times here. The people assigned to event still need to pay attention. You can see that we have the spectral horses spawn here. If you have the Sunder Armor, you can see that I still got crushed for 2900. If you have the Sunder Armor, you can get hit for like 5000 plus damage. And you're not gonna have a fun time. What you could do is you could use a target dummy to avoid the initial few hits from them, since when they first spawn they take like a second or 2 before they actually do their first cast. If you don't kill the horse fast enough, it does a AoE thunderclap that you can't get dispelled out of. We managed to kill it before it happened there. But you have a lot of damage on the raid happening right now as we're heading towards the end of it. Obviously, we are still pulling in more and more packs. In this one, it's the the ghouls, right, that needs to die. But you can see target dummies on the horsebacks, of course. And I think this is gonna be the last plague ghoul that we kill. But yeah, another spectral horse here. Ends up dying before it casts anything, but it hits for a lot. And this ends up being the very last mob. I get asked to be ready in case it's needed on Gothik. So I'm helping out with tanking here in position. Tank ends up arriving before it becomes a trouble. But yeah, this is a timed thing, so if you have too much damage on living side, you could potentially have the gate open while Gothik is on the living side. And I think that's an actual time loss. So make of that what you will. So in this run, we ended up pulling the last Acolyte pack towards us. And we ended up using our speed items after killing them. I think for an optimal speedrun, you do in fact not do this. You use your speed items instantly, because we don't get a lot of uptime here. And since we still need to kill the next Acolyte, you know, it's just the worst choice. But obviously you clear off the X target first here, the right hand Acolyte, and then you charge into the skull target. In a full speedrun world buff situation, you are going to be doing the 4 Horsemen cleave. So both Thane Cortez and High Lord Mograine is going to be pulled into the right hand corner. You're gonna be finishing off, or not finishing off, you're gonna DPS down primarily Thane Cortez at the start, so that he starts his shield wall, and then you swap over to High Lord Mograine to do the same, and then you finish him off just about the same time. What I'm doing here is I'm part of the Celiac kill crew, so this will be a specialized group that ends up doing this in order to kill this ASAP, right? But you can see on the far right side, as soon as Mograine and Thane dies, which you can see here, they end up dying when the shield wall hit or falls. The rest of the group runs over to Lady Blummo in order to kill it. And since Thane is already dead, or should I say Celiac is dead from the kill group, you can just directly run into the next part. This room has a lot of moving parts. You might be scared by the retchers around the room here, like chain pulling other mobs around you. You don't have to be worried about that as a melee. Just make sure that when you pull a retcher, you prioritize killing it, because they have a knock-up mechanic which does a lot more damage than any of the sewage slimes will do. Same thing here with the retcher here. It gets pulled. What I actually looked for there was the patrol on Grobbulus. Grobbulus, if he's in this part of the room, like if you can see him on the balcony, then he's about to spawn the slimes, the sewage slimes that we just killed off in the middle of the room. And they spawn on top of the grates. As for the speedrun tactic here, what you are more or less doing is you are gonna be running directly through this entire room, avoiding all of the small slimes. Your caster camp, which, you know, we are running 4 mages here, you can only see 2 because of my overlay, but since we're running 4 mages and the warlocks, they are going to be focusing on killing off these slimes as we are heading into the living monstrosity packs with all of those small mobs, right? This is an ideal bile retcher. You want to be killing it as you're moving through. It could potentially be on the opposite side as we are about to do the slime skip, and then you kind of, you know, have to kill it on the fly. But in this position here, you would use your speed item to jump over, and or, you know, slow fall item. You can't use mug because mug, you know, only works when you're outside of combat. But if you have some other one. You can see me, I'm about to do the first initial AoE taunt, which means that I'm in chunky gear. So the first one goes off from Trigger, and as it's about to end, I follow up with my own. I do get some heals, but I end up going super low, so if I wasn't a big tin can chunk, I would be actually dead here. And end up not getting the swap of the gear because the casters in the back are still killing off the slimes that are slowly pathing towards the rest of the group. These golem packs, just like the ones we killed in Plague Room, our Plaguewing room, right before we headed down to Noth, they have, you know, the stun, but also the cleave. So what you need here is a free action potion. The tanks might not use free action potion and might get stunned because they will need their potion cooldown later for Stone Shield going into Patchwerk. But you can see Volers in the far back there. There was one patrol that we didn't get, so we need to go back and grab it. So it's gonna arrive to the rest of the raid in a little bit after this. But yeah, the continuous combat here means that you can't really swap your gear easily. I think I get it off after this pack though. There you go. The living monstrosities themselves, they have two different abilities that are scary. They have a fear that, you know, they could cast at the start of everything. They also have the ability of lightning totem. The lightning totem does a lot of fucking damage onto the entire raid, so you want to clear them out as soon as you fucking can. In this one, you could see the fear being done by the living monstrosity, but it could have been a totem as well. And that is the same thing when you are jumping over, obviously. Let's see. Yeah, the initial 2 packs. Like, you're still, like, making sure that you don't get fucked over here. You can see this fear here. But yeah, that's the rest for these few packs. Obviously don't be me and have wrong trinkets equipped this entire speedrun. So the Patchwerk fight is based on health. The hateful strike that he applies to is being applied to the top 4 people in the threat. So not only the main tank, but the 3 people that is the closest in threat. If you are in the top 4, even as a DPS melee, you will continuously gain threats, like extra threats, throughout the fight. Just because how the mechanic works, even if you're not taking the actual hateful strikes yourself. So don't be like super worried. The only thing you need to pay attention if you are one of the melees is that you're not pushing out either the 1 or the 2 off tanks that are supposed to be in the top 4 threats. In this run, we end up running single soaker, aka one main tank, one off tank. It's a bit better than running two, obviously. Easier to heal as well. But if you don't have the gear, then you can't realistically do it easily. Depending on your potion usage, what you could do as a DPS here is that you could, you know, instead of using MRPs at some point, you could instead opt to run a Shadow Protection pot, because you will be needing it later on the Sap polarity, if we are doing it in a speedrun, obviously. Obviously, the Frogger right there, aka the slimes, if you run into them, you instantly die. Just don't lag. Just don't lag. Have good spatial awareness. What you're seeing here is the Paladin pull that happens after Patchwerk dies. Essentially, the Paladin will pull the forehand pack, the left hand pack, and the far right hand pack, and Ped tree. So you have a little bit of waiting, and then you just will jump over when it's safe. But yeah, when the Petri happens, you might get a little bit spooked out, but assuming they use a consecration, then you're not too much of an trouble. The main reason, just like Faerlina, they have shared combat with Grobbulus. So if you were to pull Grobbulus first, they would chain into the fight. But as long as they're pulled initially by the Paladin, then you can just continuously kill them. If we are not doing this pull, the actual mechanic on those mobs is that they will knock you up into the air. Two different versions of it. One that reaches all the way to the roof of this room, and then you need to snowball before landing, obviously. And another one that is, you know, doesn't knock you as far into the air. Grobbulus, depending on how like casual they run, you will not have Death Wish up. You will instead have Death Wish on Gluth later. What we are doing in this run here is we are pulling it up the ramp. In our casual run, we will most likely just be running it out like around the room here. The mechanics that are on Grobbulus is if you're in front of him and he casts his spray, depending on the X amount of targets that are in front of him, they will spawn that many slimes. The slimes themselves have an AoE taking damage. So if you were to get, let's say, like 6 or 7 of them for, I don't know, people fuck up entirely, you can spread them out, right? And then not take as much damage. But ideally, you would just have the main tank, you know, that is tanking Grobbulus, be the only person that gets the spray on them, and then you only have one ad that you can cleave down pretty quickly. One tank should just pick up the ad when it spawns. Another thing that it also is done during this fight is the mutating injection. Mutating injection needs to be dispelled by one of the paladins. You can see here that Pugs moves out of the raid before he gets dispelled, because when the dispel happens, there's a application of poison on the entire ground, and obviously, right, you want to avoid that. But not only is it like a static circle, right, it continuously grows throughout the fight. So you want to avoid, you know, having it in a bad position. Same thing if you try to put it below this ramp. Just a second. If you try to put it on, like, below this ramp, since there's no like proper z-axis like calculation for abilities in this game when it comes to mobs, it actually applies to anything above as well. So even if you put it like by the cage here below, it's gonna apply to the ramp above you. So never put down a poison intentionally, like in a bad position where we are about to like move into. As for the Paladin, right, the Paladin that did the initial pull, right, only has 60 seconds. By the end of that petrification, you have yet another paladin, in this case Truelight, using using their own buff onto paladin, which means that the abominations will intentionally run for the paladin that is outside of the room, which means that the first one, in this case Carapalli, that did the initial pull, can just join back to the group when the aggro has been swapped over. So by the time that Grobbulus is about to die, Truelight, or the paladin that buffed to grab the aggro from the initial paladin, will then just try to die and then run back as fast as they can to the fight afterwards. But you can see here, like, this is when the buffs happen, which swaps the attention right over to the second paladin. And you will see eventually Karakan joins back with us. We end up not using swiftness here. Oh no, we do end up swiftness again. I can't remember. This has been like a year ago. Gluth has two real mechanics. There is a fear that happens, the terrifying roar, and there's also a debuff that happens onto the main tank. For our sake, we will not really have to deal with like any problems with the debuff onto the tank on Gluth. However, Death Wish that we cast as melee warriors will just negate the terrifying roar, obviously. But for like rogues or anyone that wants to be in rage, you need to have something that cancels the fear here. You can also see that our what looks to be our warlock already moved in position. Because of how you do the paladin pull, you will end up summoning the paladin back by the time that you get into the next room with Thaddius. What we're also looking for here is patrols. In this case, it's another horse plus necronite path, and there can be two different one of those. We end up getting there beforehand. And as you can see, the paladin that buffed earlier is already rest inside of the instance. So the caster camp that was supposed to start off the summons are already doing so now. And by the time you get the paladin to like enter the room, then the fight starts ASAP. But yeah, for Gluth, right, there will be fear words applied to the three people that are running to set up the summons onto the paladin. And they will be using, if needed, an invisibility potion and speed item to get over to Thaddius' room ASAP in order to negate as much waiting time as possible. But here is Thaddius. Thaddius obviously has a giant mechanic with plus and minus. Very simple. You do not need to pay attention to anything other than that for the start of the fight and pretty much the remainder of the fight. As for Fugen and Stalag, they have a mechanic where if one dies without the other one dying, then they will respawn after a little bit. So you want to be killing them pretty much at the same time here. We had a little bit of a higher DPS on the right hand side and the left hand side. Just happens. Sometimes some people do more damage. You know, RNG after all. As for Thaddius, you would swap in your fast weapon into your main hand because the debuff that you will have is increasing your damage by, I think, 190%, which means that you will have infinite rage for the remainder of this fight. So you want to be using your fast weapon in the main hand because you have, you know, just a heroic strike on heroic strike over and over and over again. I didn't swap in this one, but don't pay attention to my gameplay from this one. But yeah, a few seconds into the phase 2, we get the actual debuff applied to the entire raid, and then we just have to play with it. In our run with FSP and pretty much all European guilds ever, you run minus to the left and then plus to the right. If you are playing from NA and then you have the opposite, unlucky, brother. Go again. But yeah, you can see that you do a lot more damage. On this fight, you will not be using your Death Wish, which is why we use it on Gluth, so you don't accidentally do it. And you can see I finally swap in my fast weapon. We have looked at this. It probably isn't worth it with Iblis. If you have Gristle, you would have to have a THC for this to be worth it. But if you're only using rank 14 weapons, yeah, swap in your Quick Blade into main hand. If you're Horde, make sure that you have additional weapons in your bags, so you don't waste your Wind Fury. But yes, we do get one more polarity shift. I have to myself swap position. What we will be doing here in a Saph polarity attempt is we will bring down the health as far as we can do without accidentally killing the boss, and then we're just waiting for one more polarity shift here. I am one of the people assigned to bringing it down to 1%. So we are very carefully doing that. And then obviously, you're gonna have one more polarity shift. So don't only pay attention to the health of the boss, pay attention to your positioning. Because if you finish off the boss but you don't pay attention, then you will explode the raid. So if you're unsure what the fuck to do, primarily look at the fucking minus and plus the entire fight. It's simple to forget, but it's also a simple mechanic in of itself. In a Saph polarity attempt here, as soon as we enter this part with Thaddius dead, there will be an assigned mage that ignores the mechanic. So even if you're on plus and the boss is dead, do not instantly run directly to the platform, because the mage is trying to instantly, you know, start the Sapphiron encounter so that we can have more uptime onto our debuff. But you can see that Chessmin this run here ends up starting it. By the time that you are inside of the room, it's between a 22 to 24 second time before the actual run starts. And then as soon as Plus has gone through and exited the room in the Frostroom lair, then you can take it. And this should be mentioned over voice. So you can see here, in a Saph polarity situation, obviously you go for your max damage set here. Mine is gonna be a good example why not to play, you know, your leather pieces. Because you can just instantly die to Sapphiron. Yes, try to let your tank get the first initial hit here. If I wouldn't have died, Trigger would probably be dead in this speedrun specifically, so don't worry about that. During Saph polarity, right, you will have cleaves being done from Sapphiron. So in order to avoid as much damage from cleave as possible, about 4 seconds into the run, you use your lip cooldown, which negates the first initial melee hit. And then for the second cleave, because it only cleaves to a set amount of targets, you will target them, or mass target them into the tank position. And then you can still die here, like it happens. But if there's more target damage in position, then you are less likely to have cleave death. You can still see that Pugs, Amy, and Kadlian ends up taking damage here. There's only one target dummy being pushed out as well. There's a few more now. And you can see Eplios ends up eating one, but actually quite a few of the target dummies ate a hit there. But yeah, as soon as the boss fight dies, you intentionally spread so that you don't hit each other, because after the debuff ends, normally on Thaddius, you do an AoE blast to everyone around you, even those with the same polarity as you. So you have to be spread around the room. As soon as Sapphiron dies, however, the event end timer gets triggered. So you can intentionally just use a petrification to avoid dying if it's needed. For a normal kill on Sapphiron instead, you would be located on the left and the right hand side, 1, 3, 5, 7 left, 2, 4, 6, 8 right. You would try to avoid these blizzards. When you see a blizzard spawn, it's always gonna cast 2 more blizzards directly after it. It is gonna be in a line, so if you pay attention to where the first blizzard is and the second blizzard is, you can kind of see where the third one is going to be, so you can avoid a little bit of damage there. There's also gonna be curses right during this fight, so try to not be too far away from your assigned decursors, mages and druids. During the second phase of Sapphiron, you're gonna be having ice blocks. So what you want to do is you want to have majority of the raid either positioned towards the throne side, if that's the strategy that you're going for. If you're running the sub-optimal strategy where you stack towards the enter side, that is also another version of it. But you want to have everyone be placed as close as possible to each other while not being overlapping, so that the ice block damage gets pushed on several people at the same time. It's like a 10 to 15 yard range difference, so try to not get hit by everyone. But when it gets cast, there obviously is a ice block that you can stand physically behind. Sapphiron during phase 2 casts 5 ice blocks onto the raid, and then the last cast is a frost bomb. If you're not standing behind that ice block when it goes off, you take like 120,000 damage. You can't really negate or survive that. You can, however, use a petrification, but since there's a limitation on it, it is what it is. But for like progression week, yeah, petrification can save the entire kill, or at least your life. So, Kel'Thuzad. Kel'Thuzad starts the actual boss encounter when you move into the inner parts of the circle, or if you get too close to actual Kel'Thuzad by moving, on the outer side of the room. This first phase is pretty simple. If you're running paladins, what you can do is you can continuously buff Greater Blessing of Kings on warriors, which means that these skeletons will essentially be perma targeted directly onto the paladin in question. However, if there is no initial threat onto them, if you run in and get aggro on them, they will explode and do like 2,000 to 3,000 damage on the entire raid, shadow damage. Don't be that guy. Don't fuck it up. Everyone hates it, and everyone's gonna judge you. Just don't be the causer of additional extra strain onto the raid. This should be the phase where healers get to kinda calm down, like regen, like try to come back on their resources and not have to potentially waste all of their mana, like healing up during phase 1. Other than the skeletons, right? Assuming that you have, blessings spamming, then you should be able to target any of the skeletons, see that they have initial threat on the paladin. Yes, then you can clear them off. The A-bombs, they hit really hard, and try to not charge onto them. It just makes it very awkward for the tanks to actively tank them as well. If we're running a caster stack, we're gonna have Soul Weavers. Soul Weavers, if you aggro, like if you have them aggroed onto you and you're in melee range, they cast a knockback spell that does, I want to say like 6,000-7,000 damage. So make sure that you pay attention to what the actual threat numbers are when you start wailing on them. If we are running more of like a melee stack, then we're probably gonna have to kill them, or at least help the casters to kill them. If not, if you have a lot of mages come forward into speedruns, then obviously you try to just kill them off with the caster camp. Do not charge onto the abominations. Try to not be standing behind them if they're too close to this pack. In general, if you pull these packs, even if the paladin is using Greater Blessing of Kings, you will potentially over-aggro multiple of them at the same time, because if there are more than X amount of targets, the threat generation from Greater Blessing of Kings is split amongst all of the targets. So even if the casts are being, you know, put out, there are more targets, which means less threat generated on the paladin, which means you are more likely to over-aggro them. And if you over-aggro them and you're in melee range, you explode. And then if you have several explosions, you wipe the raid. Good job. Just a reminder, this is most likely, all the damage done in phase 1 is most likely going to be removed from logs based on the current poll, so don't fuck it up. Let's go a bit forward. Obviously on anniversary this fight is 1.5 minutes shorter, so it ends after 3.5 minutes just about. Like 340-ish seconds. You have a DBM timer for it anyway. Make sure that during this time that you're waiting that you reapply your GFPPs or Frost Protection Potions. Because you're gonna be having Frost Bolt Volleys and Frost Tombs, I guess, during the fights coming up in phase 2. Kel'Thuzad is very tricky. Try to never be closer than the tank to Kel'Thuzad. If you get the initial few hits as a DPS warrior, you can just instantly die. Try to not be that guy that just kills yourself on phase 2. Very simple. You can see in this run we start with Death Wish instantly. This is because, yes, this is not individually the best strategy in order to optimize your damage output onto Kel'Thuzad. However, there is a mechanic where you get mind controlled during Kel'Thuzad. If you end up using your entire Death Wish while mind controlled, then you have wasted all of it. Good job. Use your fucking Death Wish at the start of the run. I end up using my Recklessness here because I didn't get to use it on Sap Polarity. But yes, of course you would use Recklessness on Sap Polarity. So here we see the first mechanic that can happen, right? We have, you know, AoE, or shall I say, several targets that get mind controlled. Not only is it the main tank, but it's also, I think, the second target that is highest on threat, and then random people outside of that. So we have a few DPSers, we have a healer in this case, and we have main tank that is AoE total. Deca here as well. You will be using any kind of CC that you can to get them out of this. So if you have Sands from Westwall, Magic Dust, that is, you will of course try to use it ASAP onto a target in order to, you know, CC them. Obviously they need to get dispelled after the initial, but these targets, they can kill you in like 2 or 3 hits because they eat like a fucking truck. On top of that, we have Shadow Fissure, which is a AoE, you know, ability that is cast onto one random target in the raid. It sticks to the ground, so what you want to do is you want to move back. You do not want to run to like any of the other groups, because there is a third ability, Ice Block. Ice Block gets put onto one target and it chains to any of the targets that are close by. If you're misplaced onto this fight, like standing a little bit too close, then you are going to chain it to several warriors simultaneously. When this happens, you could potentially see several warrior deaths. And this can happen at the same time as the mind control happens. Like, it can overlap. But yeah, we have Frost Bolts being cast directly from Kel'Thuzad to the main tank. We also have Frostbolt Volley that is momentarily going out. And after the Frost Blast has happened, right, the Frost Tombs that we just saw, the Ice Blocks, there is a timer before it can be cast again. But yeah, the Frostbolt Volleys are gonna, like, waste your Frost Protection Potions. In general, you want to be using them close to when Frost Blast opens again. And then we see the second Frost Blast happen on this group. The Frost Blast ability is based on your percentage health. So by phase 2 start, you kind of want to lower, if you have like stamina or you have stamina Sansa, you want to remove those so that you are around the 7 to 8k health range is what I would say is the ideal. Because your healers, obviously, they can't, you know, out-sustain if you have like 40,000 health, right? The percentage ticking base, right? If we have a situation like this where the tank position gets changed, make sure that you reposition yourself as fast as you can to the pre-assigned targets, or the approximate of where you would have the actual kill be placed. In this situation specifically, we already know that the Frost Blast has gone out, so there's a 20-second timer before we have to worry about that again. So you will see people move behind so that we can guarantee not to get parry onto Kel'Thuzad. Make it a little bit faster. But that is about what I can say just in haste about this raid. That is primarily like a DPS warrior perspective of how to deal with this. There are some things that I didn't go through, which is mostly healer related, that you need to pay attention to. But I hope this helps.